This is Jim Souhan from SouhanUnfiltered.com. Today's conversation is with Wild owner Craig Leipold. We're in his office at the Wild offices overlooking Rice Park in St. Paul. Very pretty setting. Not the fanciest office I've ever seen a sports mogul entertain from, but that's where we are. Future podcast coming up on Wednesday, December 3rd at 5 o'clock at the Local in downtown Minneapolis. My guest will be Glenn Perkins. The following week, December 10th, Gary Loris of the Jayhawks will be joining me at Kieran's at either 5 or 6 o'clock. We'll get more information out on that. Every Wednesday I'll be at either the Local or Kieran's with a guest, and we'll be recording also more podcasts just as we go along. Today's again with Craig Leipold, Wild owner. Some great stuff on Vince Gill, the Beatles, business philosophy, and all kinds of other stuff. Pretty nice office. Pretty good view. I guess being the owner has a few perks, huh?
It is a nice office. Yeah, it's one of the first things when I came in here. Just wanted to have a comfortable office that people could come into. Had to have a table. People, will sit down. We'll use the chairs over there occasionally. Always have to have my TV on Fox News, and it's comfortable to be able to look out the window. And I'm usually, when I'm on the phone, I'm just kind of looking like this, and I'm looking at the park and Rice Park. It's a gorgeous place, and this is nice. I love this city, I really do. I love this area.
Yeah, it's gorgeous over here. I don't get over as often as I should, probably. You strike me as someone who isn't fancy. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate? Because, you could have a more grandiose office if you want.
Yeah. I think that is right. I don't, certainly my kids would say that. I can tell you that. I'm not, and my family's not into, real fancy stuff. We don't go to hotels and stay in suites and things. We, when we go on vacation, we usually go to an island where you can't do anything, and that's, we don't go to Nassau or, we'll go to a little island called Exuma, and it is absolutely my favorite place on earth because there's really nothing to do. There's a couple restaurants that are all just local restaurants, and a wonderful little island that we go to where there's a volleyball beach, and their volleyball nets are up, and on Sunday mornings there's a church service on this little island, and all the boaters come in, and there could be 60 people there, and then they have a pig roast on the island. Every single Sunday's like that, and to me that's the perfect getaway, not going off and going on a golf vacation to Phoenix or skiing. I just love to just do nothing and have fun.
Where is Exuma? I've traveled a lot. I'm not sure I even know where it is.
It's the southernmost island in the Bahamas.
Okay.
All right. So it's American Airlines flies there from Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and that's the only commercial flights going down. And it's just our getaway.
You're pretty well known for being emotional during games, and the thing I find interesting about sports is you can enjoy. There are some people who need their team to win to get any enjoyment out of sports, and there are other people who care more about atmosphere and the sociality. Where are you? You have to win to feel good, or do you just like the experience?
Well, the honest side of me says, if you win, you have the experience. And, I got to put winning really high up there. I'd rather win ugly than lose and have a great game. I sleep so well. There's this nirvana that I kind of go to when we win and I'm going to bed, and you just know you got 2 points and that's great. And but I really do love to win. That's why we're kind of in this. And if we don't win, and quite honestly, if we don't win and we play well, like against St. Louis is a great team, and they're made up differently than we are, and we're trying to get to that point. I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting to where they are. we take them into a shootout. We could have won that game. I mean, I would say I felt like we outplayed them, but either way, it was an evenly matched game. We lost it. I can go away saying, son, we played really well, and that's good. But winning takes you up that notch higher mentally for me. And so I would be lying if I told you I can accept a loss if we played well. I don't like that so much. It's about winning, and honestly, our fans, it is when you want a great experience coming to a hockey game or any sporting event, you really do need to win. I mean, that's why they're there, and but our fans are just, gosh, when we win, it's like everybody is euphoric and. The whole city lights up. I mean, I go over to the hotel where my apartment is, and the place is packed and rocking. The bartenders and everybody over there loves it when we win because they know that they're going to have more people and more time, and it's it's a great experience.
Now, your team had the nice run last year, gets into the playoffs, wins a playoff series, and now you're kind of back in that. Having to compete to get back in the playoffs goal. You've already spent a lot of money. You brought in the best free agents you could possibly get. You have good young talent. Is it going to be difficult to get to the next level when you're in that realm where you're not going to get a top 5 draft pick because you're too competitive? Is it going to be tough to make the next step?
Yeah, that's the challenge where we are as a franchise, and because we aren't going to be one of those top 10 picks, not top 15. I'm hoping. We don't want to be. But what we do have is something other teams don't have. We have Minnesota. And we have this, right now, this aura about who we are and who our players are, and people wanting to come here. And they want to come here because they see other players, unrestricted free agents, who can decide where they want to go. They like our team. They like how we've been built. And, they all want to, they're going to pick a team that they think they can win at and enjoy the market. And, so we think that we're in this really unique position to be able to pick off some players who do not resign, go to unrestricted free agency. And we think that that's probably going to be the best way that we're going to be able to build our team.
I know you've told me the story before, but for the sake of the podcast, take me through how you became a hockey fan.
Wow. Well, when I was younger, I was raised around Green Bay. Okay, not a place that's well liked around in this market, but it was a little city called Neenah, Wisconsin. There really wasn't much hockey up there. Green Bay wasn't, the gamblers weren't in Green Bay, and there really was virtually no hockey. But we skated every single day. I mean, literally every single school in my city had their own outdoor ice rink. And it would be the fire department who would build it. I mean, they would literally, the city would come out and plow, and they put snow on the banks, and the fire department would hose it down, and they would maintain it. And this was an unbelievable, it was like, for kids that love to skate, we would do it. So we would take our skates with us every morning, and on recess in the morning and the afternoon, you'd go outside and you'd skate. And then at night, you'd go back up there, they'd have lights, and you'd skate. So we were skating all the time. Not much of it was hockey. So I did have hockey skates, and I had what we called figure skates, but we really called them speed skates because we didn't like the idea of a figure skate. So I liked the game, but then I went to Arkansas and went to school at the University of Arkansas. Lost completely the whole hockey issue. And then at some point in my life, which was about in my early 40s, I decided I wanted to buy a sports team. And I wasn't in a rush to do it. Actually, it might have been late 30s. And talked with a number of owners. And NBA was kind of always on my mind. Although I'd go to Blackhawk games, it's still hockey was not my sport. So, I looked at NBA. And then as I started looking at buying a professional sports team, it became obvious to me that hockey was really a good business. And so I started to investigate hockey more and realize, why am I looking at the NBA? Let's pay more attention to hockey. And frankly, this was after I made a couple offers and thought I was close buying Sacramento Kings. It's well documented. Almost bought the Kings, came very, very close. Almost bought the Milwaukee Bucks, came probably even closer. But they didn't work out, so I looked at hockey. I had a deal with the city of Nashville. They were building an arena, and the mayor was a very progressive mayor, and he and I worked very closely together to get either an NBA or NHL team in the Nashville arena, and it ended up being NHL. In hindsight, I can't tell you how happy I am that it was the NHL. And that's kind of how I got into it. And it just, I worked it, and doors were opened, and sometimes the door would close, but one closed and another one opened up. And I just kind of went down there and ended up buying the team, and that's how I got into professional sports.
Well, one of my first experiences covering pro sports was covering another University of Arkansas graduate, Jerry Jones. I was there when he fired Tom Landry. He has the big first press conference. Everybody in state hates him, and he gets up there and with no bashfulness says, "I'm going to be in charge of everything from socks to jocks." Yeah. And once he got rid of Jimmy Johnson, he was general manager. Yeah. A great marketer, a great businessman who sometimes is accused of meddling too much in football affairs. How do you draw the line between being the owner and trying to separate yourself from personnel matters, or do you?
No, I clearly do. I love the business of hockey. I love the business of sports, first of all, but I really love the business of hockey because there's so much upside, and there are more opportunities in hockey for somebody with my mindset and my skill set. I'm a sales guy. I'm a marketing guy, and I love this sport. This is something I can sell. And I could sell it in Nashville, and it did really well in Nashville, a non-traditional sports market. Things weren't, early on. People are going, "There's no way Nashville will make this thing work," and so it worked out really well. But when it comes to the hockey side, I'm not. I love to do it, but I just don't understand the game. I mean, what I know is what I don't know, and I truly, I'm not just saying this, but I really never ever call Chuck and say, what is wrong with the power play, or well, I'll take that back. I may ask that question, but what I won't say is, why don't you have this guy in the power play? And why don't you pull this person out and pull this one in? And because I just don't, even though I get letters from, or emails from people, from our constituents, our season ticket holders and ticket holders, they're all experts, and they're letting me know what the problem is. But they really don't know, just like I don't know. We were talking earlier. I'm just one of 18,000 people that are sitting in the arena watching the game. Do I know how to fix it? Sure, just as much as the other 18,000 people do. But I do not. I don't. I let Chuck do his deal. Just like in Nashville, it was David Poyle, and David Poyle did all of his. Hockey operations and all of his hockey player stuff. And the only area that I'll get involved in is when it comes to the economics of it. We work on a budget, and if he wants to go outside of that budget, he's got to come to me, just like any other person in this organization. If they want to spend more money doing something, they have to come back and sell me how does that, if we get this player or we have this expenditure over budget, how does that help our business?
You've generally been very loyal and very patient with your high-profile employees. Is it hard to fire somebody? Does that hurt?
Is it hard to fire somebody? It is very hard to fire people. And I think my history would indicate that I don't do it very often. I will do it only if I truly believe that the person has been given the resources to succeed and they didn't succeed. So often, and if I just kind of revert back to the Nashville time, we had losing streaks, and we had years where we made the playoffs, and next year we did make the playoffs. And I would look at David Poyle, I'd look at Barry Trotz, and I'd say, okay, did they really have the resources to make it? And I would say, no, they didn't. Not when, at that time, they're sitting at a $35 million payroll, and Detroit's at $75 million, and Colorado's at $82 million. So it wasn't fair. So I didn't, do any real big changes down there, and I think that was the right decision. The one termination that I had was Doug Risebrough, and that was a really hard thing to do. But I think Doug was getting tired, and was, things weren't just working out. The Arrows at that time, our minor league system, wasn't developing players at all. We had a window of 3 or 4 years where, there was nobody coming in, and it was just time to get somebody new. All right, and when I do feel, and when I get to the point, I'll be decisive. I mean, I know it's got to happen. It's going to happen. But really, I don't like dealing with confrontation, or I give people the benefit of the doubt. Frankly, that has not always worked out well for me. But it's kind of my DNA, and it's kind of the way I am.
So in your time in Nashville, did you become buddies with any music people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Vince Gill.
Really?
Vince Gill and I were pretty close.
Wow. He's one of the, as a guitarist, or fake guitarist, he's one of the world's great guitar players.
He is one of the world's nicest people.
I've heard that too.
Such a nice guy. We would golf a fair amount together. I'd laugh my butt off because I remember one of the first times I was golfing with him, he was behind me, and I'm up front. I'm probably on my second shot. He's on his first. He's a great golfer, and he's a perfectionist. So he's behind me, and all of us, and I'm not paying you. So he's going ahead, and the next thing I hear is a helicopter going right over my head. Well, it's his 6-iron, and he just had a bad shot, went to sand trap, and he threw his club. He is such an intense person, but one of the nicest, loyalest people you'll ever find. He does things in the community that was a role model for me of how to get involved in Nashville. But he would come to every game. He'd sit down in the second row, down in the right corner from my suite. Every time we scored, they would do the usual chant. He'd look up at me. We'd both salute each other. It was great. Every single game. Barbara Mandrell was a huge hockey fan. And was on the Predators Foundation, never missed a meeting. I mean, this lady is genuine, as they all are. Amy Grant was another one that was very involved in our team, and they're good people. They're fun people to be with, and Nashville just left them alone. There are so many country stars down there that these people could come to the game. They wait in line for a hot dog just like anybody else.
And now that you're in Twin Cities, you hang out with Prince, right?
Listen, I'm a Prince fanatic.
I love Prince's music.
I haven't ever met him.
Nobody has. Well, I can tell you stories about Prince.
Is that right?
Yeah. The drummer in my band knew Prince growing up. They used to go to a great little music shop down in Savage called Levon's Music, which has been there forever, family owned. And my drummer, Gary Cook, and Prince would sit on the floor when they were kids and play. Prince played the guitar, and Gary played a bongo or something. Yeah. And they play music. And they all, Gary tells me, as soon as Prince got his first recording contract, he never came back, just disappeared. And I know people who've gone to his late night shows out in Chanhassen.
Yeah.
And you got to show up whatever 7, 8 o'clock at night. He'll come on at midnight or 1 a.m. And he'll send security guards into the crowd before he comes out and tells them, don't make eye contact with him, do not speak with him unless you're spoken to.
Oh my God.
So I don't think Prince is going to be sending either you or I any invites.
It's probably not. It's too bad because he is one of those iconic people.
He's a genius.
And I mean, I'd love to meet him. I'd love for him to do a show here, but my guess is that'll never happen.
Yeah, I'm guessing neither of us will be spending quality time.
Probably right.
Soon. Last time we had a long conversation, I got to meet your parents.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Recently, your mother passed. Do you have a favorite story about your mother, or about your mother needling you, or your mother's favorite story about you?
Oh my goodness!
I'll leave it wide open.
It's really interesting because with her passing recently, the family, we've gone through some of these stories, okay, and there's been a lot of laughter and tears, and she really was a wonderful lady. First of all, she was just an incredible person. So much fun to be with. The funny story there, one story is great, and she loved to shop. She wasn't a big buyer, but she loved to shop, and occasionally she couldn't help herself. She had to buy that one thing. When I'm guessing I was 8 or 9 years old. I'm in my room in Neenah, Wisconsin. I'm opening up the closet, and there's a fur in my closet. And I'm looking at this. What is this doing here? And so it was not a full-length fur. It was probably a half fur coat. So, Mom, what is this? She said, just don't worry about that. Don't tell your father of that. That is in the closet. And so, okay, fine. Now, and Mom's biggest threat to me this was going to be her Christmas present to herself. And this was probably October. And Mom's biggest threat to myself and my brother was, wait till your father gets home. I'm going to wait till that was always the threat. We've done something wrong. And one time she said, well, you just wait till your father gets home. And I said to her, why, do you think he wants to know what's in my closet? And she kind of looked at me and said, we have a deal about that. And we just had a big cackle on that one.
That's great.
She would tell stories that would last forever. And she had an unbelievable memory for detail. Going back to the 50s, detail that is incredible. And you could never get to the story because she'd always want to go through the whole thing about all the detail. And, I mean, she is so, we don't know how many times we had to tell Mom, get to the point. What are you trying to say? But she had a memory that was just incredible. You could never fool her that, Mom, you said this, and she goes, no, I remember it was 11:30, it was a Sunday, and she'd know everything.
Your father told some stories about you, not only as a kid, and he told the great story about you being at the construction site and figuring out you could sell his beer to the construction workers. But he described you as someone who had always had that mentality, the art of the deal, figuring out what do you think has made you successful in business?
Well, I guess success is always, who's successful, who's not successful. I think I think I've done well in business because I like people and I treat people exactly how I want to be treated. And I work hard, put in long hours, particularly when I was younger. And I worked for Kimberly-Clark. I'll never forget this. My father was the vice president of Kimberly-Clark, but he was overseas. And so I'm working with this big, humongous company. And I just moved up after being a salesman. And we had a big parking lot, okay? And so if you got in there first, you got that first parking stall. And I realized I wanted to have that first parking stall because At some point, you would walk in through all this, and then you kind of funnel your way into the main door. People are going to be walking by your car all the time. Someone's going to ask, who gets here every morning? All right, that is a true story. And my window looked out to that parking lot, and I wanted to be the first guy there, as often as I could be the first guy there. Whether anybody ever caught it, I don't know. But you always, if you're not the smartest guy, then you better be working extra hard. But I think one thing I really learned from my father was his love of people, and he had no one could ever call him Mr. Leipold, wherever he was, and he was. He was pretty high up. He was the factory mill managers and, ran European operations. Wherever he was, to this day, if anybody calls him Mr. Leipold, he corrects them. It's Lefty, and I like that, and I think that's a great quality to have. That everybody's the same, and I like having fun with people. If you can't. I think that in the businesses that I've owned, I could have made them more successful by being a harder ass, but I would not have had much fun. And I look at other CEOs and other people who run operations that are just squeezing everything out and they're making more money, and I think that's great, but that is not my style. And I would rather have a business that I can look back and say, we had fun doing that. And I mean, be curious, what do other people think? But that's, I would like to think that people who work for me here and who've worked for me in other companies would look back and say, we had a good time when he was here. And our quality of life in business was fun, and we worked hard. I mean, it's like winning at a hockey game. Can you have fun if you don't win? It's like in business. I mean, you've got to be successful, but you can be successful and have fun at the same time.
Well, your dad was Lefty. You have a nickname?
Do I have a nickname? No, I don't. No.
Should we invent one right now?
Well, we could. I've actually had a couple nicknames, Jim, but I'm not about
nothing you want to say admit to. I'm the same way, actually. Let me ask you one pointed hockey question.
Okay.
You bring in Thomas Vanek, and on ice success or not, all of a sudden his name is linked to gambling. I know and however you want to phrase it. Does that bother you?
Yeah. It does, and I think it bothers Tom, and I think he's. In fact, I know he's embarrassed by it. This is a huge mistake that he made. We have not. Chuck has had conversations with Tom to make sure we understand everything, and is everything out, and is it there, and we are convinced that it's all done. That there's no other smoking gun, that he made mistakes and he gambled too much money, and it's over with. But it's not what we want to have in our organization anywhere, whether it's a hockey player or if it's somebody in sales. That's not the type of people that we want. But he made a mistake, and I think. We're going to get past that, and I think he's going to learn from that.
And to bring up a couple more positive notes, what has it been like? I mean, you go out there, you spend all the money on Suter and Parisi, a huge outlay of money. What's it been like to have them around? And did you ever second guess that decision? Did you ever think, oh God, what am I doing here?
There are certain things in life, certain times in life when you'll always remember where you were and what you were doing. I'll never forget that night, and I'll never forget kind of I'll never forget the 30 minutes. That was about 2 in the morning, where I had by myself in the apartment at the St. Paul Hotel, trying to come to grips with if we get both of these guys, because it was at that time, all of a sudden, it came into play, and made the decision. Couldn't figure out how we were going to afford it. Although Chuck assured me that it would be structured to fit within the salary cap, and it was. But how we could afford to do it in our organization. So it was kind of one. In fact, all my life I've ever told entrepreneurs, never bet the ranch. That's my number. Never bet the ranch. This was not betting the ranch, but it was betting the barn. All right. So this was a very important decision. And for 2 years, we've been watching our business go from here, down to here, down to here. And we had to we knew as an organization we had to have a wow factor. We had to get people engaged in our company, in our business, because we were becoming a non-factor, unimportant in people's lives. And I knew this was it. I knew this was going to be it. These were the two best offensive player, best defensive player, becoming unrestricted free agents in probably, 10 years. And they're all coming together both at the same year, and we were getting both of them. And so I made the decision, we did it. Your question is, have you ever second-guessed that decision? And Jim, I will tell you right now, absolutely, I have never second-guessed it. It was immediately the right decision. The next day on July 4th, our business changed overnight, and has continued to go up and up and up. And it's if we hadn't have signed those two players, we obviously would not have made the playoffs. But we wouldn't have been able to, other players who want to come here now. I mentioned that earlier, and it's really so important to our psyche that people want to come here. Our players, and you see who they are. We just signed Scandella for 5 years. We've got Brodeen signed. We have, I'm drawing a blank.
Signed almost everybody.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, all of those kind of, players that are now just becoming unrestricted free agent, Niederreiter. They're not just signing. They're not signing for 2 years. They're signing for 3, 5, 6 years. They want to stay. And when you can sign a player that long, like Scandella, you can do it at a better. It works out well for him because he's guaranteed for 5 years, and it works out well for us because we've got him now for 5 years. So, I haven't second guessed it. They're great on the ice, but just as importantly, they're unbelievably good guys. Good human beings that are good for our locker room. They're good for on the road. They're good for young players. Parisi's work ethic is he's like a mule. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And you got Suter, who just wants to play. Get me out there, get me out there, get me out there, coach. Those are the kinds of players that every team wants to have. One of those players, and we've got them now for, I think it's probably another 10 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And our business has dramatically changed to the positive that we are now a factor. Our TV ratings are wonderful, higher than they've ever been, ever. And, so everybody's happy right now. It's been a good decision. Now we got to keep working. This doesn't guarantee us anything for 3 years. This just guarantees us stuff for 1 year, so we got to keep it going.
Does your wife like hockey?
Helen is a massive workaholic, and she is not a hockey fanatic. She went to many more games in Nashville because the kids were younger and they're all at home, and they would want to go to all the games in Nashville. And so we'd always fly down, and they'd go to the games. We'd fly home afterwards. So Helen was much more of a fixture when we were in Nashville. Here, not as much, because the kids are older. We have just one more that is left in the house, the senior in high school. He has, he's in soccer, basketball, tennis. Can't get to many games. Weekends they've got games. It's killing me because it's his last year and I'm missing some of the games, but I make a lot of them. I mean, he's a great kid. So she's not a hockey fanatic. She's not a sports person. So when we're in watching hockey games at night, she's in her office doing her thing, which is running a number of 2 or 3 companies for the family business, and she's busy doing that.
Couple quick hit questions, and I'll let you get back to work.
Yep.
These are just kind of some goofy sidelights I like to end the podcast with.
Boxers.
Favorite band or favorite song? Just give me kind of a musical preference.
Favorite band, the Beatles.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Favorite song? All right. I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Well, it's like the first great one.
That's right.
The first great pop song.
Unbelievable. Never. I love listening to it. Just occasionally it'll pop on the radio. Not very often, but it's anything on the Beatles. Rubber Soul, the whole album.
What strikes me is recording technology, musical instruments, amps. Technology has evolved so much, and yet nobody can ever sound as good as the Beatles playing the guitar back then.
Exactly right.
It's just amazing.
And listening to the Beatles on a record. Just
so much better than digital.
Absolutely.
It has that warm, crackling sound.
Yes. Yeah.
Give me a TV show or a movie that you're high on right now.
Homeland.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. It's funny. Homeland, the second season, took all kinds of critical abuse, but it still held my interest.
Yeah.
And now I'm probably not as far along as you are on season 3, but I'm catching up now.
I'm totally hooked on it. I watch it all the time. Or once a week.
I usually, when I do this, I refer to something that people are yelling at me about on the internet. What do you get yelled at about?
On the internet?
Or by fans, or by emails, or,
losing.
Just losing.
Players. It's something about the team. The power play.
Right.
The power play.
And answer this question as I so often answer it about myself. I was wrong about.
Well, I could give an answer one, but it would take too much of a background. But I'll tell you. I owned a company, and we had a union strike. And my lawyers were telling me, don't meet with the union. Now we're going to play hardball. And the union was outside the door, and they said, we want to meet one last time. My lawyers were saying, no, don't do it. I took their advice. I didn't meet with them. There was an 8-month strike. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. I should have met with them. And I went against my gut and took the lawyer's advice not to do it. And the lawyers made a lot of money during the lockout.
Shocking.
During the strike.
Amazing how that works, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
All right, well, to end on a happier note here, give me an optimistic thought about this season.
We're going to get better and better. I mean, one thing I like is that as the season's going to continue to go on, we will be a better team in February, March, and April than we are right now. I feel that in my heart, that we're going to be a better team at that point. And our record is not where I would like to see it, but we're only 6 points away from being the number 1 team in the Western Division. And we've got games in hand. And yet our whole team, our whole organization, feels like we have underperformed and not reached our potential yet. And that gives me hope for where I think we're going to be at the end of the year.
Right. I appreciate the time, sir.
Yeah.
It was fun. So as you've probably figured out by now, that conversation was with Wild owner Craig Leipold, who was gracious enough to have me in his office. On a recent Tuesday, we'll have more podcasts up shortly. Again, Glenn Perkins, Wednesday, December 3rd, 5 o'clock at the local. Gary Louris of the Jayhawks, great frontman who's doing some solo work right now, will be at Kieran's with me on December 10th. Roy Smalley at the local with me, 5 o'clock on December 17th. And we're setting up some future podcasts with sports and music figures around town. Again, this is Jim Souhan. You can find my stuff at SouhanUnfiltered.com. You can read me at StarTribune.com. I appreciate you listening and reading.